Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So one of my main products here at Hill Custom Lumber is custom hardwood flooring. And I've had a lot of you guys ask to see the process of how I turn a rough sawn oak board like this into a nice piece of finished tongue and groove flooring like that. So that's what we're going to tackle today. So behind me here I have a stack of red oak lumber, and this stuff just came out of the kiln. I kiln dried it here on site, and it's now ready to be turned into hardwood flooring. So typically when I'm doing a flooring order, it's one of two things. Number one, a customer calls me, is looking for flooring for their project. I have wood in stock. We kind of figure out what they want. We make it custom to their specs and sell it to them outright. Another common thing I do here is custom process customers' wood, and that's what I have behind me. The customer had the wood sawed at some time in the past. He had it stored, and now he's ready to use it for a project. He decided he's going to use it for flooring, for an addition. So he brought me the lumber. I kiln dried it for him to finish it in the kiln, sterilize it, make sure there's no powder post beetle or bugs in it. And now we're going to run the custom flooring and give it to them as flooring that's ready to use. So I can do anything from taking whole logs and processing the logs into lumber and then kiln drying it. In this case we started with the lumber, but I can do any kind of custom processing, as much or as little as the customer needs. So what we have here is a stack of 1-inch red oak, and this stuff's a little bit short. It's anywhere from 4 to 6 feet. Typically I prefer to run 7 to 10 foot is a really nice length for flooring. It works well. It tends to work better through my machines. We're a little bit more efficient at it, but this isn't terrible. We can make this work, and it's actually a nice batch of wood. So I'm happy to run this for the customer. It should be no problem. It dried very nice. He had it air dried very nice before it came to me, so it's pretty flat. It's sawed pretty well. It should make some really nice flooring for him. So typically what would happen when it comes out of the kiln, my first step is to sort it for width. Now in this particular case, this stuff is all pretty much cut uniform, so this is simple. There's no sorting here. It is just going to become 4-inch flooring. That's the width it was cut at. That's where it's going to yield the best. That's what the customer and I agreed we're going to do with it. So it'll make 4-inch flooring. But if I'm doing random width flooring, which is a very popular look, I'll break down a stack like this and separate it into the different widths, and then we'll get ready to edge it. And that's where we're at now. My first step actually isn't even in the shop. We're down here at the mill at the edger. So I'm not going to talk too much about equipment in this video. I have plenty of other videos about the edger and planer and molder and all the equipment I'm going to use to run this flooring. But I will show you the process. So I mentioned this is 4-inch flooring, and for 4-inch flooring I run a 4.5-inch blank. So you think of your 4-inch face width, what you see when the flooring's laid, plus the tongue, which is a 1/4 inch. Plus, I need a little bit on each edge to clean up as it goes through the molder. It needs to clean up the edges so you get nice, smooth, well-profiled edges. So I like to figure an 1/8 inch on both sides. So that's another 1/4. So 4 plus a 1/4 plus a 1/4. That's how I come up with my 4.5-inch blank size. So I set my edger for 4.5, and this edger has 2 blades. So I'll be able to clean this up. I'll be able to clean up both edges of the board in one pass, and I turn my lasers on here, so if you can see, if it shows up on the camera, I have lasers that show me where my blades are. So I'll just line this board up with the lasers and I'll send it through, and it'll cut both sides really nice and straight to a 4.5-inch blank. And that's key. You really want a straight and true blank. It's a very important part of the process, because it'll just make everything feed through the molder easier. It'll give you more accurate flooring. You won't be beating up your machines, and it'll just give you a straighter finished product. So this is a pretty important part of the process, is sizing the material to the right width. So we'll get this fired up. I already got it set up, greased, ready to go, and we'll run a few boards here and get them cut to width. Alright, so I got about half of it ripped. I like to work in batches because my shop isn't huge, so in this particular order I split it in half just so I don't have all the wood in here at one time. So that's half of it on the forks back there, and I brought a few pieces in here to show you. This stuff is ripped to a nice straight 4.5 inches. The edges are uniform, so that's what we were looking for on that. So our edges are treated. The next step in the process is to move on to the planer. Now, if you're not really familiar with woodworking equipment, a planer is used to smooth out and thickness the board. In other words, change the thickness. So we're starting with 1-inch lumber right now, and I'd like to get it a little bit thinner before it goes through the molder. That's the molder. That's the machine that actually puts the tongue and groove on. So the reason we pre-plane is these boards are pretty close, but whenever you have a rough board off the sawmill, no two boards are going to be exactly the same. The sawmill isn't that fine precision of an instrument, and when the wood dries in the kiln, some will shrink more than others depending on how it's cut. You'll get some cup and bowing, stuff like that. So the reason I like to pre-plane first, it knocks everything to a perfectly even thickness, so I have a nice even starting point to run through the molder. I've always told people, the molder, the nicer the material you feed into it, the nicer the material you're going to get out. Garbage in, garbage out, so to speak. So I always try to make my blanks as nice and uniform as possible. It gives me the nicest finished product, and that's what I'm shooting for here. So if you do know anything about molders, that's a 4-sided molder. So that has a head that will plane on each 4 sides of the board. By pre-planing it one pass through the planer, you're kind of turning it into a 5-head molder. And the more heads you have on your molder, the finer a finish you're going to get. So I will pre-plane everything at least once before I feed it through the molder. Some things I'll pre-plane twice. Now this particular order, I didn't saw the wood. It's sawed pretty nice. It's nice and flat. It's a touch on the thinner side than I would saw it. So I'm only going one pass through the planer. And what I'll do, I'll look at the board before I run it through the planer, and I'm going to pick the worst face. In other words, the face that has like more knots or a check or just a defect that we don't like. I'm going to run that up. So that's the face that's going to get planed. Because when I go and run it through the molder, then I'm going to turn it and run that face down. That way we have a nice smooth planed face running on the bed of the molder to support it, so it runs nice and straight and smooth through the machine, and that way that defect will be hidden on the bottom side of the board. So that's just another way to increase quality. So that's about it for the planer. I'm going to start planing this stuff, and then we're going to get it set up for the molder. So it'll be one pass through here, then we're on to the molder. Well, good morning guys. It's the next day. I finished up planing all these blanks yesterday before I left for the day, and they're ready to go through the molder now. You can start to see it's starting to look like something now. This is actually going to be the bottom of the board. We have them upside down here. You can start to see the grain in it. It's starting to look like maybe a finished product. So the next step is to go through the molder. This is the heart of the operation, the four-sided molder. It runs through this way, and we have the bottom cutter, first side cutter, second side cutter, and the top cutter. So this is going to shape on all four sides and do the tongue and groove all in one pass. And it's really the heart of the operation, and this is what turns your basic lumber into a finished product. So I have it all set up here. If you're interested more in this machine, I have other videos about it, but for right now it's set up and we're going to start running. All right, I got that first batch run. As you can see, it's pretty nice looking stuff. We got our tongue and groove formed there. And now the next step is the final step, and probably the most important actually. Now what I have to do is take these rough flooring blanks and trim them, square cut the ends, cut out any defects, make it the finished product that goes out the door. I am very particular about this step. I will hire other people to do other parts of the process. I have never hired anybody to cut and pack flooring. I do it all myself just because it's the last step of quality control out the door, and I'm pretty finicky about what I send out. So I cut it on a radial arm saw. This is just an old school Delta radial arm saw. I have it set to a perfect 90 degrees. I recheck it before every batch of flooring to make sure it's dead on. And you can see here, I just square cut two pieces, and that's some pretty sharp looking flooring. You can see it fits together really nice fit on that. And we've got the back relief cut into the bottom. Just a really nice product. So typically I will go through these pieces and I'll look at each piece and I will grade it based on the order. If it's select, everything like this knot here, that's a bad knot, that's going to get cut out. To be honest, no matter what the grade is, that's going to get cut out because, well, nobody wants that in their floor. So I will go through and defect this stuff out. If the customer is looking for like a common grade or a rustic grade that has a lot of character in, we'll leave in little knots like this. That won't hurt anything. We'll leave that go. But anything that's machining defect, you know, if the tongue didn't come out right or something like that, or something splits out, that's not super common, but that would get cut out. Any bad knots, any rotten spots, anything like that. So I basically tailor it to what the customer's looking for. That's how we can kind of make this flooring whatever the customer wants. You know, we go over this in advance and show them some samples, and they decide what they're looking for in the floor. This one is going to be very straightforward and simple since I'm just custom running this material. It's not my wood, it's the customer's wood, and I'm just doing the work for him. He's decided he wants to leave just about everything in, and when he lays it, he'll decide what he wants to cut out. So he wants to get as much wood back as possible. I'm still going to cut out stuff like this just to save him the work and to give him a better product back, because obviously he's not going to use that. But anything that, you know, could potentially be used, I'm leaving it in, and he can make the final decision on that. So we're gonna cut it on the radial arm saw. Then we come down to the bander. We make a nested bundle, usually 5 layers high, and we'll just band it. Stack it up at the door, take it out with the forklift, we're done. So that's the whole process right there, and let's get to cutting. Well, you caught me sitting down on the job here, but after handling all this wood, I think I deserve it. So we're all wrapped up here, got everything bundled and stacked, ready to go out the door here. It's 340 square feet is what we ended up with. Not terrible for what this wood was. You know, it was decent stuff. I sawed a little thinner than I would have sawed myself, so we had a little bit of skip planing. I had to cut some out, and I left just a little bit here and there that I think will sand out when he sands the floor. But like I said before, ultimately he wanted as much wood as we could get out of it, so he can make that final decision on what goes in and what goes out. So it's a nice batch of wood, not the biggest order in the world, but you know, I was happy to do it. And if I'm being honest, with all the different things I do here, flooring is still one of my favorites. I get to be involved in a lot of neat projects, and I really like these custom jobs, you know, where I can take the customer's wood and turn it into something really useful. If anybody out there is interested in some custom flooring, feel free to reach out. We've done whole home projects, new constructions, where we go from the customer's logs right up to their finished flooring and trim work and mantles and stairs, the whole works. So capable of doing all that processing, kiln drying, everything in-house. So if that's something you're interested in, reach out. If you're interested in watching that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we feature a lot of it. So like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And I guess I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.